Hey guys, here comes another episode of Ask Ed. We're having a lot of fun with this. You all are bringing some good questions to the table, and Ed's got 60 years of messing with cars and engines and race cars of all kinds. And so we're going to ask him some more questions, and thank you for your contribution, for your thumbs up. And also a few people have been sending us a little bit of thanks, super thanks, little tips. A little hat tip for the jar, which helps us a lot, helps us keep this thing going on. And so, get enough money, I'm going to take Ed out for lunch. Thanks for joining us. Here we go. Oh, all right. Good to have you back, Ed.
Yeah, I'm good.
This is fun.
Yeah.
People are enjoying these Q&A things, so I think we'll continue.
Okay, we'll see what we can do.
Keep
Maybe
asking Ed.
we can answer them, and sometimes we can't.
Yes,
We'll
and sometimes we make something up and we get close.
Yeah, close.
Okay.
It's always interesting.
Let's see, where do I start? I think I had one on oiling. People love oiling, and oiling's important.
It's the most important right now with today's oils and with the cars and the way the cars are built now, with the smaller clearances in them,
Yeah.
and then zero weight oil, and this new oil, the way it's made and stuff.
Yeah.
We had quite a time with the oil. Maybe I shouldn't get into that or not. Studying oil.
Uh-huh.
And that's what with the NASCAR and stuff, and for a while they were in there that they couldn't go 500 miles,
Really?
and that they had valve spring problems and oil problems and all kinds of things. And to get that out, then that was Joe Gibbs.
Uh-huh.
He spent a couple $1 million on that because what good if the car didn't go 500 miles or
Right.
anywhere close?
Was that connected to Lake Speed?
Yes,
Lake
it was
Speed
up there.
Junior?
Lake Speed Junior. He
Yeah.
hired him.
Uh-huh.
And then they worked on the oil things, and that's when they got the oil blends and different viscosities. And there was even a study, and then one of our girls had it in a science fair school,
Okay.
and we made a ramp, a wooden ramp, and some hockey pucks, and we
Okay.
slid them down a ramp and measured which one would go down the ramp. And there's a word for that, some kind of a technical word, like a new word.
Okay.
And people, I never heard of that. Well, look it up.
Okay.
There really is a study on that, and I think Lake Speed had the thing. But how fast that puck would go down that ramp.
Okay. It's kind of like how slippery it is, right?
Yeah, how
Basically.
slippery, what oil you put in it, and what you put in, and how fast the puck went. Well, that's
Okay.
what we did a lot of study on that.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of
Interesting.
interesting.
Do you have any thoughts, before I get into any of these questions, do you have any thoughts as far as some of the old classic car, an old engine? Of course, the oils are different now than when that was built.
Sure, of course, yeah.
So, let's say an engine was built in the 50s or 60s or even 70s, the oil was different. What do you think
We used to
people
have
should do?
non-detergent oil,
Right.
and detergent is soap.
Okay, right?
So then the transmission oil's got a lot of soap in it to
Okay.
clean everything up and clean. When your oil gets dirty, now oil don't get dirt from because you drove down a gravel road.
Right.
It gets dirt, black, and turns black because the fuel, either diesel or gasoline, goes past the rings
Right.
and deletes it.
Right.
And I think once you get that gasoline past the rings and messes with there and heats it up a couple times, it almost turns into acid.
Okay.
It really
Right.
does. Turns into some kind of acid that starts eating on the shiny parts of the motor.
I see.
Maybe on the lifters and anything shiny.
And that would explain why people say you change your oil every year no matter what if you've driven 10 miles, because
That's
whatever
right.
unburned gas or whatever gas got in there, it's starting to really deteriorate.
So on our race cars years ago, we used to, we would run them all day,
Yep.
drag racing,
Yep.
and let them set overnight. And the next morning we would go, don't start it up, take the drain plug out and drain all the black out.
Ah,
Put the drain plug back in and add a quart.
okay.
Full it. We never changed oil because the oil was brand new.
Right. So
But
you're
there
just,
was some oils in there that I think Quaker State did a good job
okay.
of that oil that would separate the two.
I see.
I think Pennzoil wasn't so good.
I see.
It would, Pennzoil didn't have that separation thing, so we could drain the black stuff off.
Right.
So if you'd had a glass oil pan, the bottom inch of it or half inch would be solid black,
Wow.
where it separated that stuff, and that was all good.
Yeah, because it allowed you to
That's
get
it.
rid of the bad
Yeah,
stuff.
the non-detergent oil. The detergent oil then, years ago, the blocks, they would make a block one day in the thing, forge it, and then they ended up machine it and put it in a Model A Ford.
Yeah.
It was pretty coarse. It was like a sponge, rough cylinder walls.
Okay.
So then that oil would stick in there. If you took the motor apart, the cylinder wall would be black because they had no detergent. And the first time you put detergent oil in that thing, it washed all those black things off the cylinder walls, and they were rough. It started using oil a quart every 5 miles.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Foreign cars were that way because foreign cars, for every Porsches, they were in a hurry. They cast the motor one day and put the car the next day.
Right.
And it was so rough they wanted. So now, I remember going to Detroit. There's a field full of rusty motors sitting on piles and piles of them on pallets.
Okay.
And they were seasoning.
Oh, interesting.
So they let them all sit out there in the weather, maybe 2 or 3 years or something.
Wow.
And they seasoned. Then they could go back, machine them. Then they could use the non-detergent oil in them. So I don't know where they're at right now. Basically, these new aluminum motors are all sleeves.
Okay.
And the material now on that cylinder wall is totally made out of a different material than they were cast iron cylinders.
Right. So we're generally, your biggest history is 60s, 70s, maybe 50s
Yeah,
cars.
that's what we were learning a lot.
Yeah, right. And the oils and the engines and the
Yeah,
materials
we
have
were
changed.
concerned with that. And if there's an oil seminar in town, I want to be in the front row.
Yeah, you love that.
Yeah, I love the front row. I want to know what goes on.
Excellent.
And then we just took one of my friend's cars apart the other day. I mentioned he bought the car for his dad, 49 Chevy.
Uh-huh.
We took it out, it had cast iron pistons in it. So, and he remember when he bought that car, he's almost my age. He bought it from his dad. He's had it all these years, and he remember overhauling it in high school.
No.
But he didn't remember the cast iron pistons, so we took it apart the other day. So it was interesting, kind of fun.
So you also have Babbitt bearings in it?
No, he didn't. He changed that. It had better, but in high school he changed it over.
Oh, okay. So
A little machine in there.
yeah.
But,
Well, you have to learn something in high school shop,
yeah, you
right?
had to do something in shop to get an A, I guess.
That's right.
I'm sure he did get an A too.
Yeah. All right. We've had, a lot. When you did that oiling video, you showed in the Lifter Valley, you showed these standoffs.
Yeah, pipes.
The pipes that are
Yeah.
sticking up. And boy, a lot of people have asked questions about that. And one of the questions that comes up more than once is, how tall were those, or does it matter very much?
Couple inches.
Okay.
Yeah, it don't matter.
It doesn't matter that much?
No, if you buy a brass one, they're about 2 inches long.
Okay.
And they're made to threaded, and they have a little place for your wrench to go on.
Okay.
But you can actually buy pipes at
Okay.
a hardware store.
Okay. You don't even,
yeah.
doesn't even matter that much.
Does not matter because we want them to breathe, but we didn't want the oil to go down in the crank.
Okay.
That's all it's for.
That's what it's all about. Someone asked about drilling oil holes that go in the crank. Drill those bigger.
Yes, we drilled the center 3
Okay.
when we had the bare blocks, so we drilled those bigger because they weren't really big enough. We drilled with a long drill bit through the block,
Okay.
and then also past the cam bearing, and then between the cam bearing and the oil galley, which is in the middle of the motor.
Really?
The main galley.
Uh-huh.
We drilled all the way through there, so the oil, the main galley would put more oil to the cam bearing, goes around the cam bearing, that hole is efficient,
Okay.
and then up to the main. And the center 3, because each one of the center ones oils 2 rod bearings.
All right.
And the other one oils 2 rod bearings, and the center one. But the first one and the last one only oils 1 rod bearing.
Okay.
The front main only oils 1, the rear main oils 1, so that's okay.
So I guess really, if I want to do a shortcut description of when you're thinking about oiling on an engine,
Volume.
it's volume, but you're also trying to make sure the proportions are right. That the thing that needs the more oil gets more oil. things
Yes,
that
that's
don't-
right. Yeah.
Don't need as much.
Yeah.
So the follow up on those standoff pipes. So it says those holes beside the can, they're plugged to keep the oil from falling down into the crank. But why are they so long? Why not just use a short plug? Those standoff pipes, and I suppose, I think what he's not realizing is that that's actually a pipe where oil can go in.
Well, it could, but again, we want to. It's okay to have the whole galley above the cam with 1 inch of oil in it,
Okay.
because we want that oil to go in the back of the motor and flow down where it's supposed to be, and return down that hole in the back of the block.
Right.
Yeah.
So to his question, then you could just plug them.
Well, we want them to breathe too.
Okay.
The
Good
breathe,
answer.
the whole engine needs to breathe.
Okay.
And if there's any oil at all, we want it to disappear somewhere.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we don't want it to. Yeah, we want it to breathe. Now, some of that breathing, then let's go real quick. We'll just a couple of things. Is the pistons. you got a ring in that piston going up and down.
Right.
And when we first messed with total seal rings back in the 70s, we even had this total seal ring on the second run, on the second ring.
Okay.
And the piston would pull as much vacuum or whatever on the way down as it would on the way up.
Right. Okay.
So now we had all kinds of pressure in the engine. And so we had to take duct tape and duct tape the breathers off and the valve covers.
Because it was two-way street now, right?
Yeah, it's going both ways. The piston going up and down, you know.
Right.
So anyways, and we had a lot of research on that. So anyways, we did that, and then we changed the ring and put it up on the top, and it still has a lot. So anyways, we get into a vacuum pump then.
Okay.
So our dragster right now has a vacuum pump, a small pump, with belt driven, or whatever you want to drive it to, and it pulls vacuum in the engine.
Okay.
And takes that vacuum and puts it in a can, a waste can on the outside of the engine someplace,
Okay.
and sucks all that air out of there. So sometimes we used to run, it helped a lot with 4 inches of vacuum.
Okay.
And the car ran a little faster with 7 inches of vacuum. This is a junior fuel car, almost a 200 mile an hour small block Chevy.
Oh, wow. Now, why would it
So-
run faster with the extra vacuum?
There's no resistance, the piston's going up and down.
Okay. Yes, it's just a little freer to
Yeah,
move.
just a little freer. They didn't have, it's a compressor.
Interesting.
Each piston's a compressor. It compresses air up and also can compress air going down. Piston's going down, it's got to do something.
Yeah. Excellent. Wow. Here somebody has a question related to 327s. He says, and this is probably a comment, but you can respond to it. The smaller journals on the earlier 327s is one reason why they're more desirable than the later 327s. You might think the smaller journal is weaker, but I believe the small journals had forged cranks.
To answer a little bit of that, she's worried about that bearing thing there.
Mm-hmm.
And we went over that before with some of our other videos.
Yeah.
That the speed of the bearing between the 2-inch throw on a 327
Mm-hmm.
and a 2 1/4 inch throw on a 350, between those two at 5,000 RPMs, the bigger the thing is, a bigger pulley, a bigger circle. If they're all going 5,000 RPMs, the speed between the two is totally different.
Oh.
The smaller the journey is, a smaller bearing, smaller pulley. It's much slower.
Interesting.
So we used to take a 350 crank, 2-inch crank, brand new, and grind it 40 under
No kidding.
to slow that speed down.
So you wanted a smaller bearing in that?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. It wasn't just an
And
accident.
then the bearing was thicker, because the bearing would be, if we did 30 or 40 under on the crank,
Right?
the bearing was 15 thousandths thicker right here, and give you a more bearing cushion,
Wow.
as you had 12.5 to 1 compression and a lot of horsepower and put a lot of motor in it.
Right?
So there's a lot of gain to that thing. Just
That's
get a
interesting.
brand new crankshaft, turn it 30 under.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah. So some of that in there is kind of interesting. I'm sure it's interesting. It's a little warm in here today.
Yeah. It
It's
is.
okay, but it's only 113 today outside.
That's
but
right.
That's what we get for living in Arizona.
We'll sweat it out here.
Yeah,
Let's see. Well,
That's what we pay for living in Arizona.
that's
where
the
we have perfect weather year
price to
round.
pay. That's right.
I said perfect weather year round,
It's always
not in a snowbank somewhere.
That's right. We
Okay.
we don't have any use for shovels for
No,
snow.
we have no shovels. No.
No, that's right. Okay, I'm gonna ask you one last question here before we worry about air conditioning here. Can I use oil return modifications on a street 383 with hydraulic roller setup?
Oil modifications, return.
Your return, I think he's again talking about these extra oil.
Absolutely, sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Follow up on that. Is a 383 stroker, is it more than just a 350 with 6-inch rods? Is it also a different crank? And I guess you've kind of covered some of that.
It's a stroker crank. Different crank.
Yeah. So you're at the rods and the crank are
Yeah,
changed.
right. Yeah.
Okay.
And the crank and pistons match.
Right. Okay.
And the rod don't make any difference, but we just like to have a longer rod.
I see. Okay.
Takes that stress off the side of the pistons.
Right.
Side travel going up and down, yeah.
All right.
That's
Excellent. Well, that's a good segment on oiling. Thank you, Ed. That's
Okay.
fantastic. Appreciate you.
Okay.
We'll carry on. We'll do some more.
Well, we'll do something in the wintertime when it's not
Yeah,
so.
when it's a little cooler, maybe
No,
soon.
not necessary. We don't care. We
Okay.
enjoy this.
This is fun.
If you don't enjoy this, move.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Go
it's
somewhere
part of
else.
the fun. Okay, take care. Hey, thanks for watching another episode of Ask Ed, and thank you for subscribing to Barry T's Garage. We look forward to seeing you on the next one.